Okay, I just want to do a video on Agnes Skuvst. Did she ever exist? She was said to be Edward Leedskalnin's Sweet 16. Ed wanted to marry her and she was only 16 years old. There's a small problem with Agnes Skuvst, and that is you can't find her name anywhere. You can't find any memoriams for her. You can't find her last name anywhere. You can't find her family. And Coral Castle is reported, if you go to their frequently asked questions, coralcastle.com, they say that Ed never married and died a single man, although Agnes Skuvst was invited several times to visit the Coral Castle. She never saw Ed's great achievement dedicated to her. So they claim that Agnes Skuvst was invited a number of times. They actually contacted her and she refused to come. Now also, it's mentioned there was also witnesses of the broken marriage. Edward Leedskalnin's family actually went to this church and witnessed it all happen and then drove home sadly, according to what's in this book here. I've searched all over. I have not paid to get into any of these sites, and I've used different spelling names, different spelling for her name, and nothing's coming up. Now, in the book that Andrei Stavro wrote, he mentions it was only in 1969 that more detailed information about Edward Leedskalnin's unfortunate love was provided by the American magazine of Latvian goddesses. The bride, the now world-famous Sweet 16, was the cousin of Ernest Brastens, the founder of the Latvian Goddess Society. Her name is Hermine Lusis, but in her family and relatives she is called Irma. Now, Hermine Lusis, I believe this photo came out of this book here, once again. I don't know where this photo ever came from. Was that in Joe Bollard's book? Unfortunately, I don't own his book. Anyways, so we got the name Hermine Lusis, and if you do a search, the name actually does come up, and I don't know who put this in, but you'll notice they did the birth 1901. This is all improper, because they're matching this birth date for a 16-year-old girl, which is not proper. But there, the name seems to exist. You know, the last name exists, at least. Now it is said that Ed met Irma in a beautiful place. Down here by the Barini Manor, the Barini Parish, down in here is where Ed met Irma. Now this is found periodica.lv, and you can do a search through their newspapers. And this is the actual article, I believe, that Andrei Stavro referenced from. Now, if I could find the beginning, I will read it to you. It's 1969. written by Arvids Brastens. I'm going to do a real rough translation because the translation itself is very rough. Let's see what I can do. Monument to Love, Coral Palace. Arvid Brastens' story. He wrote in the 57th issue of the newspaper, the one that we mentioned earlier, the one that Andrus mentioned, in his book Karalu Pills. In Florida, in the city of Homestead, in the center of a very lively meeting place, there is a well-known coral palace built by the peculiar Latvian Edward Leedskalnin. The castle, with its monumentality and simplicity, leaves a smashing impression. It has been viewed by thousands of tourists, etc., etc. The saying that the bride left him the day before he married is not true. There is more information about Ed Leedskalnin's great love. His intended bride, her name is Hermine Lusis, but in the family and relatives, she is called Irma. Irma was slender, very pretty looking, cute in nature, nice in conversation, and a good singer. She was born around 1889 in Mosos, Benini Parish. Emma is therefore 2 years younger than Ed Leedskalnin's. In the forest is where Leedskalnin's great love began. There was a 300 dowry farm, the house of Aikazai Manor. Irma's brother, it was granted to General Gopur, but Mesos on the basis of long-term abilities to my cousin Jonas, who was Irma's brother. Aikazai Manor is located on the side of the ancient Riga-Trbata highway, but in Mesos it is just beyond the manor park. The borders come together. Forest shoots into the straightest road through the manor's courtyard, passing a small river without a bridge. In the parcel about 3 kilometers further along the highway is Insiem's Manor, which was awarded to the writer Victor's Iglitis. So this is the beautiful area here where Ed met Irma. It's a gorgeous area. This is Vizrizi Parish. And this is Barini Parish right here, where Irma was born, apparently. Zoom down into here, and we see Barini's there. And then there's another of other manors that were mentioned. It's all in this area here we're talking about. This is what they placed in the newspaper. This map. Got that body of water there, that body of water. There's Barini. There's Mezosis. There's Barini Manor, and there's Veselova Manor. Unfortunately, no church books have mentioned anything about the failed marriage or the failure to be married at that church. Now where are we? Irma's father, Alexander Lynx, the owner of the house in the forest Shots, was married to my mother's older sister, Maria Zabols. They were my godfather and aunt. In the family there are 9 children, 2 sons and 7 daughters. My parents lived in Masotes for 3 years. After leaving Lestrop, Lapino, so my birthplace is also in Masotes. Sorry if I'm butchering these words, guys. I have not a clue how to pronounce these. Irma is my mother's niece and is called my mother's name. The two got along very well, even all the things of the heart were spoken. That's how Leedskalnin's great passion for Irma was revealed. After casually hearing, I guessed that he was pleasant, but he wasn't the right merchandise yet. Irma could have been about 23 years old when several guys swept her over. None of them aroused the love in Irma. Maybe she had been waiting for someone herself. In addition to Leedskalnin's, she had been proposed to several times. This is confusing here. It sounds like this guy also asked Irma for a hand in marriage, perhaps. Irma's mother was already dead, and her older sister Anna was taking care of the farm and sisters. Juniper had received the place of the manager of the manor near there, Staples. Then came the case that decided the distant fate of Irma. Her father had decided to marry for a 3rd time in old age. The first wife had died in creatures a year later. All the kids had to go out into the world. The father was willing to leave himself if his son John paid him 2,000 rubles, which at the time was a lot of money for his belongings, in the hope that he would not be able to do so. None of the daughters had a special trade, so maids would be expected of all of them. Juniper ended up lending John money to buy back from his father's farm. So all the children stayed together, and Irma gave consent to marriage. So Juniper lent Irma's brother money to buy back their father's farm so all the children could stay there. And out of gratitude, Irma gave consent to marriage to Juniper, albeit without passion. I was the only representative of our family in her marriage to Juniper. It sounds like the family wasn't even really on board with it. I made the journey from Deakley 55 Verstes by bike. Once I also visited them in Velikaja Manor. Then Leedskalnin's earlier letters from America were also gifted. They were beautifully, wonderfully written and with an invitation to travel to America. So all this time, Ed's in America, he's still sending Irma letters. Very possibly after she married Juniper. After the revolution, the Juniper family returned to Latvia with their daughter and son and lived in Riga. When the former teacher was based at Grizzlenklem's and Paul's church, Irma's children were my students. Irma's husband was not a serious worker in other circumstances, so Irma was the main breadwinner. His enjoyment and closeness with cows gained in forest shots further along the outskirts of Riga. I don't know what that means exactly. When his third wife died in Masote, he returned to live with his son in Masos. During Free Latvia, we took him to the Strope cemetery. After 10 years, Irma Zbeza ended her life in Riga. So 10 years after Juniper passed away, Irma passed away, I think is what they're getting at there. And that is the story, the actual story. Forest shots where the great love began. Barini, the great love began there when Ed was hiding out in the forest, supposedly. Man, there's so many rumors that have come out of some of this stuff. Right now, we're dealing with Ed trying to marry a 16-year-old. There is no evidence at all of that, but there is absolute evidence that Ed was trying to marry somebody only 2 years younger than him. Her name, Hermine Lusis. All the evidence is there. We got all the spots where they were hanging out. All the manor names you can look up. I believe these two quotes are from the Kralu Pills book, which everybody should really pick up. It's an excellent book. There's so much stuff in there. Okay, so the writer of this article, Arvids Brastens, if you look him up, is this Arvids? No, this is Ernest Brastens, who was the brother of Arvids Brastens. Brother of Ernest Brastens, great leader of the Ladybird family, artist, sculptor, Danu researcher, author, director, and longtime editor of Le Bais. In exile, he continued the works of Ernest, murdered by communists, the author of several books on godliness and Latvian life. Born on April 13th, 1893 in Barini Parish, same parish that Irma was born at. He had a daughter, 1927. That is the writer of the article that we just went through. If you go to here, you can find that, better photo and everything. Here's where I got these marked. There's Barini there, there's a Veselova Manor there. So then his brother is named Ernest. He can be found here, Ernest Brastens. And these are all in relation to the woman that Edward Leedskalnin wanted to marry. Now, Ernest Brastens was a Latvian artist, amateur historian, folklorist, and archaeologist. He is known as the founder and driving force behind the neo-pagan religion Dievturība, which he started in the 1920s and which was re-established after the fall of the Soviet Union. If you want to read more about him, that's where you'll find that in Wikipedia. So interestingly, there it is, right there. There's no reason these guys would lie, right? And And we can find the name for the most part. I haven't paid to get into any of these other sites, but we can find Irma around. The Lusis name we can find. Here's all the areas, right? And I'll just go through and show you all the little links. This is just your family tree search. Not sure where this photo came from. It might be in Joe Bullard's book. This is from the Coral Castle site, coralcastle.com, where they say that they have invited Agnes. Witnesses of broken marriages can be found in this book here, written by Andre Stavro. You can look for yourself for Agnes Skuvst. I've looked in tons of places, can't find it anywhere. This is the area. Well, we're in the area here. All the parishes mentioned in the article you can find. Google Earth, earth.com. Same as these photos here was googleearth.com. And Google. Gorgeous place. Look at that. Ed leaves there, does his travel, and then he ends up in Florida, and he makes his own paradise. All the while writing to Irma, inviting her out. Eventually, I think he got a note in the mail sometime saying that she got married, or perhaps she was pregnant, and then Ed gave up all hope in her leaving Juniper, and that's when he began building all of his furniture, rather than working on his house at Ed's place. FamilySearch.org, Google.com. And yeah, there's also, if you go looking in for newspaper articles, you will find Irma's name. In some of these articles, the newspaper is out of Latvia. Her name actually pops up where Agnes Skuvst does not. What I did here, I guess what we've all heard, Agnes Skuvst translates into, roughly, innocent kiss. And I am under the impression that that's where the confusion came from. Ed was telling people, I am waiting for my innocent kiss, and he would say it in Latvian. So it sounded a little like Agnes Skuvst, perhaps. So if we do a translation, put in innocent kiss. Look at that. We get Agnes Skuvst. Doesn't even say Agnes there. I put in Agnes before English to Latvian and it doesn't work out. But it's at Nevin, let's see.
Leedskalnin.
Hey now, could people think
Leedskalnin.
that Ed said Agnes Skuvst with his accent? I bet people did. But I think Ed was saying, I am waiting for my innocent kiss. And I think that's where all the confusion happened. I am waiting for my innocent kiss. I am waiting for my sweet 16. What do you guys think? because Agnes is just nowhere around. And where'd this picture come from? Don't know. Thanks for all your time, guys, and I hope you have a great day. That's all I have for now. I hope everyone has a great day.